Hey everybody, Sean here with Some Dude in Texas, and welcome back. And as always, if you're new to the channel, hey, thanks for stopping by. Man, I am stoked about this episode, man. I've got four awesome old school thrash metal albums. I think three of them are going to be reissued, but I think one of them may be a original pressing. So pretty stoked about that. So let's get started. All right, so man, I've really been kind of going down that rabbit hole of old school thrash metal lately, right? And just checking out stuff that I never heard of, for whatever reason. Either it just wasn't, publicized or wasn't promoted much down here where I live, or just maybe at the time I just wasn't into that stuff. But, these are bands that I think have kind of flown under the radar, either being from Europe or just, bands here in the States that just never really made it big. You got the big four, of course we're grateful for those, Slayer, Megadeth, Metallica, and Anthrax. But some of the other bands, man, I've really been getting into. I didn't know, never heard of them back then. So it's like, man, just hearing them for the first time, it's like being that teenager again. So it's pretty cool. Well, the first one I've got here, I've already talked about this band before. This is their second release, and it's Believer, Sanity Obscured. This is a reissue, man. I've been waiting a long time for someone to finally issue these. This was one of my favorite albums back in the early 90s, 91's when it came out. One of my favorite bands, too. Picture the guys. Now, I actually was fortunate enough to see them back in, it was either late 91 or early 92, probably early 92. They were on tour with Bolt Thrower and Sacrifice. They came to an old hole in the wall out there in the DFW area called Joe's Garage. And me and a buddy of mine, man, we lived kind of far away, but we ended up making like the hour drive out there to check them out. And unfortunately, I didn't get to hang around and see Bolt Thrower or Sacrifice. Man, I tell you, hindsight, man, I'm kicking myself for that. But it was a school night, so I had to get back home so I didn't get in trouble. But we got out there, and they had another band opening up. I can't remember who it was, but Believer came on second, man, and they just killed it, man. And I remember, I was like I said, I was a huge fan. And I remember standing there watching a previous band, and Joey Dobb, the drummer, he come out to kind of check him out, and he kind of walks right up to me, just kind of standing there next to me, checking him out. So being an 18-year-old kid, I was like, "Hey, man, what's going on?" I'm like talking to him. And I remember, I mean, I asked him the dumbest thing. On this album here, they redid a U2 song called Like a Song. And the only thing I could think of, man, I looked over at him. I said, "Hey, man, y'all gonna play Like a Song?" He looked at me like I was an idiot and just kind of laughed. I was like, "Nah, man." And I always thought that was funny. But great band, kind of along that technical side, like I said on the previous album, maybe kind of like Sepultura. But I think they fit pretty good with that bill that they toured with, with Sacrifice and Bolt Thrower. But just heavy guitars, technical. I think they got a little more technical on their second album. And they even threw in like some violins and a little more like some keyboard stuff on one or two songs. But always loved this album, always loved this band. They're still around. They've got, the main two guys, Kurt Bachman and Joey Dobb. They're still putting out some new stuff. I think they put out like two more albums after this. And then I think in the past 3 or 4 years, they've released a few songs. They haven't released it, I don't think, on an album yet. But you got to dig for them, but they're out there. I think you can find them on, I think they finally released this like on Spotify and Amazon Music, those main music streaming sites. So you can check out, everything that they've putting out. But if you haven't heard Believer, definitely check them out. But just real quick, inserts. Like I said, this is a reissue. Pretty cool. Got some live shots, behind the scenes shots of the guys. And then the lyric sheet. Then the vinyl, they have two versions. They had like a splatter, and then they had the solid color. And just like Extraction from Mortality, one I got, I just went with the solid color. Couldn't justify spending the extra $3 or $4, but it's orange, nothing fancy. Dropping stuff here. But killer band, like I said, they're just Always been one of my favorites. Definitely check them out. I think you'll dig it. And let's see, was there 8 songs on this one? I remember the first song, I think on side B, I think it was Stop the Madness. They used it for some kind of anti-drug um, thing that they were doing back there, promotion deal. But you hear it, the intro, you hear a guy kind of walking in, you hear him chopping up a line and lining it up and snorting it and everything. And I always thought that was kind of cool. But killer song, man. I don't think there's a bad song on here. Once again, man, this one looks reissued on Bombworks. But I can go rambling on and on for a long time on this band. But check them out, man. Believer, Sanity Obscured. All right, next one. A band I never heard of back then. Like I said, a couple of these are going to be European bands. Back in the late 90s, or excuse me, late 80s, early 90s, you really didn't hear a whole lot about it. I guess unless you were kind of digging around, looking into magazines, or maybe watching some other kind of shows or something. But good band. Glad I'm finally hearing it now. And once again, I'm glad to, as I've said in previous episodes, that they're reissuing all of this old stuff, man, because it allows us guys that never heard it to be able to afford it and check it out. But anyway, this band is a Danish band. Yeah. Artillery. Fear of Tomorrow. Never heard of them. Came across of them, about a year or so ago. Finally got around to getting it and checking it out. But killer stuff. And most of y'all probably know who Artillery is. Like I've said many times, I was kind of living under a rock back then. Reissue, kind of a gray marble. Pretty cool stuff. But good, European early thrash metal. Man, gotta love it. All right, next one here. Another European band out of Germany that I'd never heard of. I'd heard of a band with the same name, but they were more kind of traditional, maybe more of a hairstyle metal band. But it's this one right here. Paradox. Heresy. I think this was their first issue or their first release. Man, this stuff is killer, man. Everything about it, cool riffs, kind of technical, heavy guitars. Love the vocals. Not real rough. He's actually kind of singing. Killer stuff. Said, man, I'm enjoying digging down, going down this rabbit hole and checking out all these bands I've missed years ago. This looks like reissued Roadrunner. Nothing fancy, just black vinyl. But if you haven't heard of them, Paradox, definitely check them out, man. If you like that, actually, it's just the late '80s, early '90s thrash, heavy guitars, good singing, high vocals, killer stuff. All right, now this last one is a band that I definitely had never heard of. I was at one of my local go-to shops the other day, and I was just digging through, and I came across this, and the album looked cool, man. It looked, I was like, all right, this is metal, and checked it out and loved it, man. But this band is from the States, out of Connecticut, I believe, but it's Indestructible Noise Command. Kind of an interesting name. This was their first release, Razorback. But check out that album cover, man. That is killer. Picture of the guys in the back. That mid to late 80s thrash metal, man. If you like that early Metallica stuff, Megadeth, that vibe, that guitar tone, you're going to love these guys. Vocals are cool. Definitely, I can hear a little bit of early James in his vocals. But good stuff, man. They're still around. I think right now they got at least 3 of the original members from this lineup here that are playing now. Still got the original singer. He's sounding a little different. But killer stuff, man. I kind of got on YouTube, started looking at some stuff, and they've put out some new stuff over the past 10, 12 years. Got some videos out. Pretty good stuff, man. I think this one is original issue, is on Giant Records. I mean, I really don't care about that, but the fact that I grabbed one, I do think that's kind of cool. And it didn't cost me an arm and a leg either. But once again, Indestructible Noise Command, or they also go by I.N.C. Their first release, Razorback. Killer stuff, man. That early American, old school thrash metal, man. Check them out. All right, that's it, man, for this episode. I've got some other ones coming up. Like I said, I've been going down a rabbit hole, been on an old school thrash metal kick. Man, I got a big stash of thrash metal and some traditional metal tapes to share with y'all as well. I'll be breaking those up in two different videos, so those will be coming up in the next week or so. So be sure you're coming back and checking those out as well. But once again, man, I appreciate y'all watching. And until next time, y'all take care.